English ಕೊಡಂದ್ರೆ ಚೇತರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೀಪ್ Morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
5 minutes break. Or should I continue? You want a break to stretch after the class? Okay. So first question is, why didn't you attend the pre-test? As of now, I saw it around 7 in the morning. There were only 47 people who had answered. Though the one who have answered, I would like to know. Any one of you, please speak up. One of you who have answered the pre-test and they also did not answer it perfectly, because I had told well in advance that you've got to prepare. You're going to speak up or not? You just give me one hint that I'm not going to ask any questions. I'll just move on with my slides. Will that be fine? Aditi?
Yes.
Yes. Should I shut my mouth apart from what I got to say about biochemistry?
No, ma'am.
Did you attempt the pre-test?
I tried to, ma'am, but I didn't get most of the answers, so I just left it.
You slept? When did I give actually? When did I upload the pre-test?
Yesterday, ma'am.
Yesterday in the afternoon only. I thought all of you are night owls, that you are going to do it at night, so I checked once again in the morning. But you are all the same. You just want exams. You don't want the concepts or the knowledge. And do you think that the exams result, we believe it to be true? That online classes are more effective than offline classes? You want us to believe? Akshata?
Yes, ma'am.
You want us to believe that the marks that you have scored are for real?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, they are for real. Did you get so much of concepts through online than you were offline with the classes? Live
No,
classes?
No.
We know what all went during that exams. It's just that we have some barriers of not telling to you and not asking you. We know all that goes behind those exams, behind those systems, should I specifically tell. Right? So I want you to shift your focus from just giving a message that you are understood to really understanding the concepts. It's not only for Akshata that I'm talking. Shrishti, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Did you attempt the pre-test?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, as you can see, we really take efforts to give a pre-test form, a Google form, and give it to you, because We want you to know the questions at least. And how are you going to get exposed to the MCQs from the NEET, university exams? 25 MCQs are going to be there, na? So it's up to you. You're all adults, but it really hurt me that you are so very disinterested in something different from the other didactic lectures. You are so comfortable with these didactic lectures that you just want the other side to be active. That is the teachers to be active and you are passive. I'm not trying to tell you are passive learners also. You're not learners also. You just want to attend and get the attendance. This is what I took as a lesson, and henceforth you will not have any enthusiastic class from my side at least. I am done with you all. Fine, let's move. So my job and duty and whatever you say, actually I am very much interested in taking. So this is an early clinical exposure class for you. Ideally it would have been done offline and physically, see your responses when you visit the patients, when you visit the hospital. That feel of a to-be doctor would have come if not for Corona, right? So I've tried my best and I'm not taking the class. I'm not telling you anything, okay? So as if you are read, you will understand this early clinical exposure, right? So early clinical exposure, I am going to give the disorders of calcium metabolism as cases. And disorders of calcium metabolism is one of the important chapter which has got the potential to have as a main question. Because there are so many disorders and so many cases, and from real life point of view also they are very important, right? So we have invited one pediatrician to, because most of the disorders, it's not that they're only with pediatric, but most of them are with the pediatric age group. So we would like her to talk something about the disorders of calcium metabolism. And I think so few students do not even know where the homeostasis of calcium metabolism is as a chapter. Which chapter it is? Calcium metabolism. Parkhi Anand. Parkhi Anand. Did you read from the textbook? Where exactly in the textbook does the calcium metabolism come? Parkhi. Okay, I'll shut my mouth. Okay, let's move. It's no point. So early clinical exposure, the specific learning objectives of today's ECE is at least you should know the disorders associated with calcium metabolism. What are those disorders? The name of the disorders, their epidemiology, that is how much percentage of the population that you will be catering to will have those. Try and remember that yes, this is not something which is given in theory, but what actually happens to people. You should know what percentage, what kind, what is the age group that I would like to make this as a probable diagnosis. So the epidemiology you should know, and what goes. The pathophysiology of the disorders is very important because they are not clear cut. They have so many underlying disorders that may cause this, right? They make the underlying disorders in either the inherent, they could be inborn, they could have genetic, or the other disorders in transport system, receptors, anything, they will give rise to the disorders in the calcium homeostasis, right? So those you got to remember what is the pathophysiology. And you got to read the metabolism because you are just in the basic chemistry, that is basic science. You are not yet a doctor, you are not even coming in contact with the patients. So at this point of time, what is most important to you is to know the calcium metabolism, so that when you go to the clinical side, you will have the evaluative workup, because once you know the concept, it's like solving a mystery, right? So for that, you have to know the concepts by heart and with understanding, right? So we have certain cases for you. Hope so you answer back. So can you identify the disorder? Go through this slide and let me see how many of you will answer. What is the disorder? There is a child given. He has got wide sutures and delayed closure of frontanales. He has his frontal bone bossing, craniotapes. He has delayed dentition. He has something called as rachitic rosary and a pectus craniatum. He has got swelling in wrist and the ankle joints. He has board legs and a Harrison sulcus. What's the case about? I'll not go to the next slide unless you answer. At least 5 of them answer. What is it?
Rickets.
Rickets. Yes, that's true. Yes, you have gone through the rickets. So what's the first sign? So I would like you to know, nowadays we don't have a full-blown rickets like with all these signs and symptoms. You are not going to get this because we know the population has grown more conscious of their kids. They will definitely know what are not normal, right? So they may visit a pediatrician or a doctor of first contact a bit early. So what is the first sign? So there is no going to be bowing legs, rachitic rosary. They'll not wait till all this happens. So as a conscious doctor, you have to understand the disease at the first, because it's a very preventable disease and all mothers want their children to grow normally, and mothers are the first one to notice any abnormality and visit the doctor. So the first sign that happens in rickets is this. What is that you are seeing? What is that you are seeing in that slide? What is it called? क्या देख रहे हो स्लाइड में? What is seeing?
Swelling at the wrist joint.
Swelling in the wrist joint. It is the enlargement. The length of the wrist joint is increased. It is called as hypophyseal. That wrist joint will be there, na? It will be called as hypophyseal enlargement. So the wrist joint, even though not as a swelling as such, it is the increase in the width of those wrist joint. That's the first sign. If you see that sign in the kids, you are going to evaluate further, thinking about rickets in mind. Fine. So what are these? What are these that you are seeing? What is wrong with the kids?
Bow legs.
Yes, bow legs. You are going to see the bow legs. Yeah. Yeah, you are seeing the bowing legs, and also the bones are weak. They are not able to hold the weight. And does the kid look nourished and plumpy? What could be the other conditions along with the bowed legs and rickets? Where do you see this? See, the patient doesn't come to you like, I am only a patient of rickets, I am only a patient of eczema, psoriasis, right? You have to see the patient as a whole. The first thing is, the kid is from a third world country, right? Underdeveloped country. Can you see that? A picture speaks 1,000 words, right? Only your eyes should be seeing it and your mind should be knowing it. Right? Where is the malnourishment more commonly seen?
Africa.
Yeah, malnutrition, right? So the kid is from the third world country.
Asia.
What kind? What? Asia also. What kind of malnutrition are you going to make a diagnosis by just one picture?
Protein.
क्या बोलते हैं उसे?
Marasmus or kwashiorkor.
Marasmus or kwashiorkor? Easy marasmic?
No,
What is it?
marasmus for below 1 year of age.
No, what is the clinical features of marasmus? This kid is definitely not marasmus. Along with the bow legs, what are you going to see? What is this?
Pot belly.
Pot belly. What is this? Which sign? Pot belly is a sign of what? Vitamin
Edema.
D deficiency. Pot belly.
Vitamin D deficiency.
Could be edema also. So, what are the investigations that you are going to request for to support your diagnosis of kwashiorkor? So you are in biochemistry. Agar kwashiorkor, if you have that on mind, what are the investigations, blood investigations that you are going to send? Request for. Serum total proteins, albumin, Ag ratio, vitamin D, calcium, right? Serum calcium. These are the tests that you request for. Fine?
Yes.
Yeah, this is how you should work up. So this class has already been taken, so I'm not going to go in detail, right? So you should know the pathophysiology that happens in the bones, trabecular bones, and this is just a overview. You have to know how the osteoclast, and the hormones that act on these bone cells. You should know everything in detail, right? And then one more support apart from the blood investigation is that you can ask for an X-ray, that is the radiological findings. That will give you a fair idea about what's happening, right? So can someone identify this sign? What is this?
Pigeon chest.
Pigeon chest. Then what are this? Bead-like structures on both the rib cages. What is it called?
Harrison sulcus.
This Harrison sulcus is also there, but what are these beads on the rib cages called?
Rachitic rosary.
Yeah, rachitic rosary. So the case was of rickets. So we'll not waste much time. We have our guest for today. That is, I'd like to introduce Dr. Anusha. Yeah, she's a pediatrician. So she will take over because I have invited her for half an hour. I'll be there with you after that. So if you have any questions, like she will tell first thing about these disorders of calcium metabolism, about her experience as a pediatrician, and then if you have some questions, you can direct towards them. Okay? Welcome. Wonderful. You just talk to the microphone.
Good morning, students. Today we will discuss about calcium metabolism. Which hormones are involved in calcium metabolism? Anyone? Which hormones you know?
PTH.
Vitamin D.
PTH.
Yeah,
Calcitriol,
vitamin D, PTH, calcitonin.
Steroid hormone.
Huh?
Calcitriol.
Yeah, calcitriol. These are the hormones involved in
One screenshot taken Aksha and active. Ama. They can yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
What is vitamin D? As you all know, it is fat soluble vitamin. Okay. Along with vitamin, it has other endocrine activities also. Okay. Along with that, it is autocrine, endocrine, and fat soluble vitamin. Okay. What are the sources of vitamin D? You know, it is mainly from sunlight. Okay. Our skin synthesizes the vitamin D from sunlight. What is the deficiency of vitamin D in children? What signs you know? These slides are visible.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Deficiency of vitamin D in pediatrics, it is called as rickets. The same thing in adults is osteomalacia. Okay, what it is, what rickets will cause? It is because of defective mineralization of the bone. As you all know, bone consists of two parts, right? One is matrix part, other is mineral part. If there is deficiency of the vitamin D or phosphorus, it will cause defective mineralization of the bone. Okay, that is depicted as rickets of osteomalacia. Rickets is a disease of growing bone. That's why it is a problem of pediatrics. Okay, when there is no growth, there is no manifest rickets. In adults, the same thing you will call it as osteomalacia. Okay. In which group rickets is common? It is 6 months to 3 years. And it is unusual before 3 months of the age. When you say rickets, it has two types. Okay. One is nutritional rickets, other is non-dietary or non-nutritional rickets. Nutritional rickets is because of deficiency of these three things: deficiency of the calcium, deficiency of the phosphorus, and deficiency of vitamin. What is non-nutritional rickets? It is because of liver disorders and renal disorders. Why liver and renal disorders will cause rickets? Anyone? Liver contains which enzyme? Which involves in vitamin D metabolism?
Calcitriol.
Enzyme. Which enzyme?
Calcit.
25 hydroxylase enzyme, right? 25 hydroxylase enzyme is present in liver. Which enzyme is present in kidney? 125 hydroxylase. Okay. These two diseases, any disorder of the liver, any disorder of the renal kidney, it will also cause rickets. One thing you should know here is, if there is no bone growth, there is no manifest rickets. What clinical features you will see in rickets? This is craniotabes. What is craniotabes? Softening of skull bones. That is, if you press the skull, if you feel like it is ping pong ball, that sign is called as craniotabes, and it is first to appear in kids. And wide anterior fontanelle, frontal bossing, parietal bossing, the skull will appear like quadratum. That's why it is called as caput quadratum. In eyes, you will see cataract. What is cataract? Opacification of lens. And in oral cavity, you will see dental malformation, poor enamel formation. And in upper limbs, you will see widened wrists. And in chest, you will see three signs. These are ricketic rosary. This is pectus carinatum. This one is Harrison sulcus. Three signs you should remember in chest: pectus carinatum or excavatum, ricketic rosary, and Harrison sulcus. In abdomen, because of hypotonia, there will be pot belly and visceroptosis. What is visceroptosis? Liver and spleen will be palpable because of ligament laxity, because of vitamin D deficiency. In spine, there is kyphosis or scoliosis. What is kyphosis? Kyphosis is forward bending of spine. Scoliosis is lateral bending of the spine. In lower limbs, you will see 3-4 signs. This is bow leg. Bow leg. In other patients, you can also see knock knees. Bow legs and knock knees. What is bow legs? These ankle joints will be together. In knock knees, the two knee joints will be together. And there is double malleoli. If you see here, this is one malleoli, and above this you can palpate one more also. So there is double malleoli sign, and these bones are soft bones, so they are easily fracturable. So pathological fractures are very common in vitamin D deficiency. And the kid, the total stature of the kid will be short. Baby presents with short stature and developmental delay. Developmental delay mainly motor delay. That means not able to walk, not able to sit. These are the signs. What biochemical changes you will expect in rickets? Vitamin D will be deficient. Calcium may be normal or low. Phosphorus will be always low. And alkaline phosphatase levels will be high because of increased osteoblastic activity. If it is dietary deficiency of vitamin D, then increased PTH level will be there. This is because of secondary hyperparathyroidism. If you take X-ray, mainly wrist X-ray and knee joint X-ray, you will see these three signs: cupping, fraying, splaying. Fraying is the first sign to appear. Here, if you see the metaphyseal end, this is blurred end. The regularity will be lost. Irregular, blurred end. This is called fraying, and it looks like a cup. That is cupping. Splaying means widened wrist joint, widened metaphyseal end. This is knee joint X-ray. As you can see here, generalized osteopenia is there, and there will be bow legs. This is cupping, this is fraying, and this joint will be widened. So that is splaying. How to diagnose rickets? It is mainly clinical diagnosis supported by biochemical findings, that is supported by X-ray, radiological findings. What treatment you give for rickets? It is vitamin D sachets will give. One sachet will contain 60,000 international units. Total dose of vitamin D is 6 lakh units. Along with that, you should give calcium and phosphorus also. And if the baby is responding or not, to see that you have to repeat the X-ray after 2 weeks. If there is white line of calcification is visible, then the baby is responding to your treatment. If not, you have to repeat again that 6 lakh units of vitamin D. In then also, if there is no response, then you label it as resistant rickets. Then you should think of other non-nutritional causes of rickets, like any renal disorders, kidney, liver disorders. You should think of how to prevent rickets. It is mainly by exposure to sunlight. This is easily available thing. You can do that. Apart from that, diet which is rich in vitamin D, like milk and milk products, meat, egg yolk that you can give, and along with that supplement the kid with vitamin D and calcium. Any questions?
Any questions you have about your curiosity of patients, pediatric patients to ma'am? How many rickets patients have you seen now? Like, she is quite young, she is an assistant professor, she has joined us recently. But have you seen rickets patients?
Yeah, actually in a week, 1 or 2 rickets patients we see.
So in a week, 1 or 2 is quite a lot. That's taken as a rickets load of this area. But as we can say, it is quite common. With all the signs, or they are
subclinical signs
subclinical
are
signs. What's the
like for example, widened wrist is more common. That is the main thing.
Yes.
Rickety rosary and all, that is late to appear.
Late to appear. So no, you shouldn't wait for all the signs to happen. So first sign first, you got to know and start the treatment. Okay? Ma'am, would you like to add about other calcium disorders like hypercalcemia? Have you ever seen a vitamin D resistant rickets?
Vitamin D resistant rickets I have seen 2 cases. After coming here, 2 cases. Those actually presents like other signs like alopecia and all. Alopecia, dental defects, enamel defects. Those cases I have seen. 2 cases I have seen. And along with that, X-linked hypophosphatemic rickets is also very common. That thing is like, if you give vitamin D twice also baby will not respond, radiological signs will not appear. Then we think of phosphorus metabolism. Usually we not send all investigations at a time.
At a time, yes.
So after 2 doses of vitamin D, if there is no response, then we seek for other causes of rickets.
So it's almost like solving a mystery of rickets.
Yeah.
If it is resistant, you got to know. So for that, you have to know the underlying concepts of all the things, like what happens with vitamin D, the actions of vitamin D on intestines, bones, right? So what all it does, kidneys, importantly, and then the calcitonin, then the parathyroid hormone. So all these actions are really like a mystery. What else I can say, right? So this ECE is to stress you all to know the importance of the calcium homeostasis. From exam point of view also, it is very important, and as madam says, if you go for the patient care, you got to evaluate a patient. Each patient is going to be different, and that evaluation comes when you join the dots. So they'll give 1 or 2 hints that in signs and symptoms. So that you will have to take and join the dots to solve and come to the conclusion. But something like I have put up in my slides as Gittelman syndrome. So anything about that. So the next case is going to be that. So I'll share with this again. Yeah, this is a case presentation. I'll take a few minutes of this. So go through this case, students. So a homemaker of 42-year-old age. Okay, go through this case. She just presents with tonic contraction of both the upper limbs for 10 days. So it's a delayed, slow presentation, not an acute presentation. And this is the way you have to go. The patient is just going to give you the main complaint that he or she is uncomfortable with, and this history taking will be taught to you in your second phase. So about the presenting illness, you will have to ask few questions in detail. So when you asked, she gave that she was apparently normal till 1 year back. Then she had this tonic contraction of both the upper limbs, and in 1 year she has around 10 episodes, and increased frequency has been for the past 10 days only. And after developing each episode, she has gone to the family doctor and had taken parental drug, and she got relief for that time being. And no investigations were there with her, and there is history of generalized weakness and easy fatigability. And this is about the other history that we usually take. There is no history of tonic-clonic movement to rule out the epilepsy. No history of tongue bite, aspiration. You don't worry about these terminologies. You will learn slow, but the first time you have to be sensitized about this is what we do with the patient when they come to us, right? So no history of bladder or bowel incontinence, aura, fever, abdominal pain, and then about this past history, we take what happened in the past, like with, in relation to the other disorders like hypertension, diabetes mellitus, previous seizure history, hyperthyroidism, any major surgery she has undergone, right? All this past history. And we also take a diet history, and since she is a female, we take a menstrual history and family history also as well. These all have to be in detail, but then we come down to examine the patient, right? Taking all the history, we come down to examine the patient. This is a general examination. You will have to tell about her state, that is, she's conscious, oriented, and non-febrile, afebrile. She doesn't show any pallor, sinuses, right? So these are vital signs. You have to record this on a daily basis if the patient is admitted. Her pulse rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate, and the temperature. Then, with 1 or 2 hints of her thing, you have to observe that system in detail. But the other systems also you are not going to ignore, right? For her cardiovascular system, respiratory system, you have to know these are the basics, right? And then we come to symptoms of hypocalcemia. So since it is not rapidly developing and it's not severe, the features also we tell in detail. She has got muscular weakness and fatigability. She has observed increased irritability, loss of memory. She has these and prolonged QT interval. And this is the sign that she has developed. So remember this sign. So how many of you have heard this before? I had given in your pre-test, right? What is this sign? Students, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what is this sign about? It is given here. Identify the sign. Identify this sign. So acute hypocalcemia will also be presenting as muscle cramps, either tetany, convulsions, or laryngeal stridor. Whereas the chronic hypocalcemia will be presenting more of as cataracts, dry skin, and the other which are not so important. So when they worked up the case of this female, they have asked for the complete blood count, and these are the values, nothing significant. And let us see about the biochemical parameters. Look at her serum calcium levels. It's just 5.7 milligram percentage, and you will have to remember the serum calcium level, because once you sit down to answer about the calcium metabolism, the first point is that you have to know the normal serum calcium levels. So the reference ranges is going to be around 8 to 10 milligram percentage. So the units also you got to remember. Don't write grams. So that's going to be a cross mistake on your side. So the magnesium is reduced. we can see her potassium levels are low and parathyroid hormone is normal. So I just want to tell you all like what all happens. Like it's not just the hypocalcemia is not the diagnosis. Why that hypocalcemia has to be there? You have to work out. So finally, what they have found out is that she also had metabolic alkalosis, and the diagnosed case was something called as Gitelman syndrome. Right, Gitelman syndrome it's pronounced as. So it is an autosomal recessive condition, also characterized by hypokalemic. We have seen that her potassium levels were low, and she was metabolic alkalosis, her pH on the higher side, but with hypocalciuria and hypomagnesemia. So this was causing her calcium levels to be low and the symptoms. So it's not plain and see hypocalcemia and you give calcium and vitamin D. So even though you supplement with her, again she is going to develop because it's an inherent disorder that she is suffering from. So you have to know what all the other investigations that do, right? And would you like to add like a difficult case that you have seen? You have gone, worked everyone as a team and gone to the depth and
Actually, one more thing is Bartter syndrome. That also will present like hypocalcemia, hypokalemia. But one thing you have to differentiate between Bartter's and Gitelman's is hypomagnesemia. Magnesium levels will be normal in Bartter syndrome and it will be low in Gitelman's. That things about that is the main point here is hypomagnesemia. Other things will be there in other syndromes also, but which is peculiar to Gitelman's is hypomagnesemia.
So
And metabolic alkalosis. When you do ABC, there will be metabolic alkalosis. It is like when you see pallor, you should know what is the cause of anemia. Like if you see the cases of anemia, not like transfusing blood and sending them. You should work out for causes of anemia. What is it? Is nutritional cause, iron deficiency anemia, or it is hemolytic cause. What is destroying the RBCs? You should know. The same thing applies with hypocalcemia also. Hypocalcemia is calcium levels will be low, but you should know what is the cause of hypocalcemia.
So students, we are not here to confuse you all and tell the complexity. This is how the MCQs are going to be for your NEET as well as in your exams. The difficulty level goes on. So those 10 questions is what differentiates from an average student and an intelligent student. So this is how you have to approach the concepts. Hope so this inspires you to go back and read whatever calcium metabolism that has been taught as a lecture. And this is how, by being a good doctor, you can change the life of the patients that come to you. Otherwise, they'll be just running from pillar to post that you give calcium supplements and they'll go and they'll come back to the same thing. Understood? Understood the importance of the concepts?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll
Yes, ma'am.
thank ma'am. Ma'am is quite busy. So she'll join us sometimes when we invite her for other things. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
No, I'm not going. I'll come back. Okay, so that was the Gitelman syndrome for you, and ma'am has given a very nice point that the Bartter syndrome is also going to present similarly, but the only thing that differs from Bartter syndrome and Gitelman syndrome is the metabolic alkalosis, which is present in Gitelman's, and the hypomagnesemia, right, which is not present in the Bartter syndrome. Got the points?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay, then we'll move. Don't be overwhelmed by the information. Like sometimes it happens that we want to show you everything what is happening, but for your level, just understand that understanding basic sciences are very important. They are the foundation for you to be a good doctor, right? We'll go ahead with the what is Gitelman syndrome. It's mostly a disorder seen in adults. It comes with generalized muscular weakness and there'll be easy fatigability seen in them. They'll also complain of muscle cramps and tetany and chondrocalcinosis of knees. So there is extra calcium deposited in the knees. So what are the differential diagnoses? It's not just one. We found out it to be this, but the hypocalcemia as such. So this was Gitterman syndrome is one of the causes of the hypocalcemia. So when you have hypocalcemia case with you, what are the things that you will be thinking of? One is a tetany, encephalitis in this patient, right? It could be due to encephalitis. It could be due to strychnine poisoning. Strychnine is a drug which is used in anesthesia, right? It could be a rabies case. It could be a bacterial meningitis. It could be due to birth trauma or epilepsy. Birth trauma is not considered here because she's an adult of 42 years. But when you see the similar things in pediatric cases, you can think of birth trauma. So as you can see, calcium metabolism is not just the tetany hua, hypocalcemia. It has a literal workup is needed, evaluative workup is needed. So next, what are the disorders that we learned in calcium metabolism up till now? First was the, name the disorders that we have gone through. Rickets, yes. Mithali. Everyone is silent again. Mithali is here. Actually, I am thinking of marking up these names and giving up to the academics head. Let them know how much of interest you show in a class. Mithali, are you here? So what are the disorders up till now that we have seen? You have seen the rickets and you have seen the hypocalcemia. The another disorder which is quite important is hypercalcemia. You also see the increased calcium levels. So what if the calcium levels are increased? So you have to remember the famous mnemonic, right? So hypercalcemia could be presented as stones, bones, abdominal moans, thrones and psychic groans, right? These are the presentation. They can present as renal stones or they can present as hypercalcification of bones. Abdominal moans are the pains. Thrones are the prickling sensations that you see. And psychic groans because it's affect the person's psyche, right? It could be either anxiety or depression, right? So these are the clinical presentations. So you've got to remember this, it's quite interesting as well. So other features are anorexia, weakness, renal failure, it could be a cardiac arrest, stupor or a coma. So as simple as a calcium level, the imbalance in calcium level can cause up to stupor and coma, to understand, right? So what are the causes of hypercalcemia? So this chimpanzee is what will make you remember all the causes or most of the causes of hypercalcemia. It could be over-enthusiastic intake of calcium supplements. It could be hyperparathyroidism, long-term immobilization, milk alkali syndrome, parathyroid hyperplasia, or adenoma is more common, microadenomas. Increased alcohol intake, neoplasm. So any cancers, if they are metastatic, if they are metastasized to the bones, it's going to have an osteoclastic lesion. That is, they break down the bones and release more calcium. Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, excessive vitamin D and A supplements, and sarcoidosis. So all these are the causes of hypercalcemia. So this is the workup, right? So you should know the basics. of how this parathyroid hormone acts on calcium metabolism, right? So I'm not going to go in detail because they have already been covered. So why this picture all of a sudden have I put up? So we are so privileged, like some countries are so privileged that when they see these third world countries and the whole generation of them suffering from what is a preventable disorder, and that disorder is crippling. It's crippling. The person will feel crippled and he will not be able to be a productive human being in his life, in this lifetime. So the nutritionist research, they go there, they actually formulate the food that has to be given on a daily basis. And when they work up, they continue, not a single person goes, the program is going to be continued. And they work for around 10, 15 years. And when they see the next generation changing right in front of their eyes is what makes them proud, right? What makes them proud in being a science student, that you are changing someone's demography, right? The whole population you are going to see healthy, the next generation. So the stunted growth and all, they when they replicate, that is they reproduce, it's going to be passed. The stunted growth is going to show in the next generation as well. So once you treat this generation, there's going to be definitely a healthier next generation and a healthier planet as such. So hope so you understand that by reading, you're not only going to change your life, you're going to change the life. So that's the beauty of medical science. And I hope you take pride in slogging and reading, because it's not only your life that you are going to make it more comfortable, more satisfying, and more known, but for the people that come in contact with you, that those they have faith in you. Yeah, they don't come in a car or by walking. They walk on the pathway of faith to a doctor that yes, he or she is going to relieve him or her of his incapacitation at that moment, whether it's a pain or it's a delivery or it's a psoriasis of the skin, anything. So they come with you with certain hopes, and to live up to those expectations, this is the right time for you all to read. Okay? Don't you think you can make a difference? Don't you think yourself as important?
Yes, ma'am.
Your time as important?
Yes, ma'am.
And all the facilities that are being given to you to make others' life important. So understand you are all very important to the nation as such. You are not some aira gaira nattu kaira ki aaye gaye and no one is bothered. You will be, once you don't take yourself seriously and build yourself and your character to have that kind of resilience and the zeal and the passion to work, definitely you will be just another doctor who doesn't touch lives. They'll just earn, right? I hope so you learn everything with interest and passion. So let's go back. You just sit back and at least listen to this carefully. At least 10% of it is going to be captured by your mind, right? So see the distribution of calcium in the body. So 99% is in bones and teeth, right? 1% is in the intracellular fluid as endoplasmic reticulum. So you got to know why the calcium is important in the endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum or the sarcoplasmic reticulum of the muscles. What do they do? Calcium. They give the immediate energy for muscle contraction. So this calcium is important. And the very important fraction is that which is present in the extracellular fluid, that is 0.1%. So the calcium, wherever it is important. So make your life of one such. Wherever you are, you should be felt that you are important and not unwanted. Right? So this is the distribution of calcium in the body. Right? And the phosphorus is also given. Right? In that distribution of calcium in the ESF, that is 0.1% I'm talking. This 0.1%, out of that 40% is non-diffusible calcium, or which is protein bound, which is not immediately available for anything. And around 60% is diffusible, out of which the 50% is ionized and 9% is complex. I have got the MCQ based on this. Right? How much of it is ionized? So if you want to remember one or two things, you have to remember how much is protein bound. 40% is protein bound, and how much is ionized. Ionized calcium is very important. 50% of it is ionized calcium. So the MCQs also can be different. So 50% of that which is in ECF, of that which is in total body. So it can get as complicated as it wants to be, right? So you got to know. So coming to this protein bound calcium, which was around 41%. Most of it is bound to the albumin and smaller fraction to globulin. And whatever is bound to albumin again depends upon the acid-base balance. If the pH is low, it is decreased, and if it is increases, it is increased binding to the albumin. So it is pH dependent. So as we are seeing, she was suffering from metabolic alkalosis. So whenever there is an alkalosis, the protein bound calcium is increased, and hence the ionized calcium levels will be decreased, and therefore she was having that tonic movements of the upper limbs, right? So what are this extracellular fluid? Why did I say that 0.1% is very important? Because it is essential for neuromuscular excitability, the hormone secretion from the vesicles, even the insulin, whatever hormones is stored in the vesicles, they will be released only after calcium binding to that vesicles. It is very much important for enzymatic regulation, blood coagulation. You see many clotting factors need calcium, and it is also essential as a second messenger. Coming to phosphate, calcium is tightly regulated with phosphorus in the body. The phosphate concentration is around 4, half of that calcium you can remember. And it is also essential for ATP and cyclic AMP, that is the secondary messengers. So calcium phosphorus relationship is like this. When calcium goes up, phosphorus comes down. Phosphorus goes up, calcium comes down. It's a seesaw relationship, right? So the phosphorus daily requirement you can remember. And coming to the calcium metabolism in an adult human. So this kind of 2-line diagrams I would like to see in every answer related to calcium. Whether it is about vitamin D, whether it is about parathyroid or anything else, these 3 target organs have to be present in your answer with the diagram. The bones, the intestine and the kidney. And this will change accordingly. If you want to show the action of vitamin D, what it does to the calcium intake. It increases the calcium absorption by cal binding. What it does to the bone, right? The vitamin D, the basic action is to reduce the serum calcium level. So how that serum calcium level will be increased? That has to be set with the diagram. Coming to regulation of calcium, right? Normal levels, I said you have to remember the normal levels. The decrease, that is hypocalcemia, is going to lead to tetany, and when it is increased, it can lead to renal stones, right? Tetany is due to excited nervous system. Next is the basis of acidosis and alkalosis. I think so. These slides are going to be with you. You can just go through. Right. This you can write down with your answers in your textbook. What are the hormonal mechanisms? What are the non-hormonal mechanisms? Let us see first the hormonal mechanisms. Again, long term, which is due to parathyroid hormone and vitamin D. These two will increase the calcium levels, whereas calcitonin acts on all the three target organs to reduce the calcium levels. What are the normal mechanisms? Are the buffering systems, salts exchangeable, right? These are important. Coming to regulation of calcium by vitamin D. So as we can see, sunlight acts on 7-dehydrocholesterol. The first hydroxylation will give to vitamin cholecalciferol, right? And the first hydroxylation and the second hydroxylation. 1 alpha hydroxylase and 25 alpha hydroxylase. So finally, you have 125 dihydroxy vitamin D3, that is calcitriol, which will act to lower the plasma calcium levels, and parathyroid hormone and prolactin is tightly regulated with this. So they increase the vitamin D and the calcium levels. So these target organs, kidneys, intestine and the bones, what all it does to each of the organ has to be known with reasons and the concepts clear. Coming to parathyroid hormone, I know that you would be tired at the end till you come to that parathyroid hormone action on calcium. The parathyroid hormone is secreted by parathyroid gland, and whenever the calcium levels are decreased, it gets stimulated, right? It is a polypeptide hormone. It has got just 84 amino acids with it. It acts via cyclic AMP. So any of these can be an MCQ. I can confuse you in just the secondary messenger. Cyclic AMP hai, calcium hai, cyclic GMP hai, inositol triphosphate. So unless you are read, you will not know that it is cyclic AMP. What are the target organs? Bone, kidney, intestine. What is the action? It is necessary for fine control of the 0.1%, that is the ionized serum levels. It acts to increase the calcium levels and decreases the phosphate levels. It affects the bone, kidney and the intestine, and these are the effects on the kidney. It reduces phosphate reabsorption, increases the calcium and magnesium reabsorption, and increases the formation of 125 vitamin D by stimulating the 1 alpha hydroxylase on the kidney. So calcitonin is secreted by the C cells or the paraparenchymal cells of the thyroid gland. So one MCQ is going to be, where is the calcitonin secreted, thyroid or parathyroid? We get confused, right? It is on the C cells of the thyroid gland. Stimulated by hypercalcemia. It is the opposite of the parathyroid hormone. Right? Function is to decrease the calcium levels. Within minutes it decreases, and the opposite effect of parathyroid stimulus. Right? So it acts on bones to increase the calcium deposition and inhibits the bone resorption by inhibition of osteoclasts and decreased formation of osteoclasts. On kidneys, it decreases the calcium reabsorption and increases the calcium excretion, right? So try and understand what calcitonin does to the calcium metabolism. Others are minor, estrogen, because we have postmenopausal women suffering more from the calcium deficiency. So this is the interaction of between the parathyroid hormone and the calcitonin. Hope so, I did try and do justice. What do you think? Did you learn from this? Why such less attendance? Only 98 of you all. Anything going on in your mind? Enjoying, like you want to be on a holiday after the IA? Yes, Aaron?
Oh, ma'am.
No? Where are the others? Around 50 of them, not less. Okay, hope so. You take that. Go back and read, please. It's really very important. It's very judicious use of your time. Also, if you study this chapter well and good, it will help you in your second phase, third phase, final phase. And talking about the first phase, it is very important. It will fetch you a lot of marks if you write a good answer. So it will be a very useful time that you spend on calcium metabolism. Fine? Shall we sign off?
Yes, ma'am.
Sign off? Okay. Take care and do read. Happy reading. Okay? You should be happy while reading. That is what I believe in. Fine? All the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Go through the MCQs, please. Go through the MCQs.